Alrighty, you guys, so in the world of tower defense games, there's definitely quite a few. Although typically only a few reach popularity and notoriety, and it's because of that a ton of really cool tower defense games are pretty much just left in the backlog, including the subject of today's video, Paradigm Shift Tower Defense. Paradigm Shift Tower Defense is a futuristic themed tower defense game where you're defending the world from a corporation of evil robots, or as the game itself calls them, nodes. You guys know when I talk about tower defense games, theming is incredibly important, and I want to tell you why. The tower defense game type is inherently a pretty simple one. Not too much variation can be done from a development standpoint on the gameplay. While yes, some games will introduce new mechanics like tower death spawner towers, multiple tower paths, multiple map paths, or modifiers, at the end of the day, it is still just a tower defense game. This is worsened by the fact that every game generally has the same tower archetypes. For example, Ranger and Soldier from TDX and TDS respectively are inherently the same tower. This isn't a knock on the TDS or TDX developers, however, as a early game burst tower is an incredibly common tower type. Rounding out my point here, a lot of tower defense games use the same tower archetypes, and so theming is such an important part of the game. If it doesn't have a unique theme, it's just a generic tower defense game. A tower defense game needs to be pretty unique to itself, pretty memorable in order to retain a community and a narrative and visual style. Paradigm Shift Tower Defense feels very inspired by Tower Battles in how it looks, being a more retro old Roblox type of aesthetic. And yes, this does run the risk of it getting looped in with Tower Battles itself. Thematically, Paradigm Shift Tower Defense makes up for it in enemy design. While most tower defense games generally are going to chase that zombie enemy type we've seen 1,000 times, Paradigm Shift is themed around robots, mega corporations, which create a Cyberpunk 2077 type of vibe. And this is reinforced by the game's musics, with a 90s synthwave type of sound, creating an auditory distinction in addition to the game's narrative distinction. This game feels like where Destructor from TDX should have came from. His visual appearance and soundtrack match Paradigm Shift's theme more than TDX's, in my opinion. Paradigm Shift also keeps up with other TD games gameplay-wise, having a large variety of towers. The favorite one I used in my time was their version of the Grenadier tower type, having it be centered around Molotovs, dealing both AoE, explosive, and fire damage. Bosses in the game are fun and all have their own unique personality. One of the coolest things I did in my time with the game was watching bosses actually talk with the game's narrator, adding actual conversation in the loop. Or the Militant boss, for example, would actually talk in game chat when attacking your towers. It overall created a very unique experience that I hadn't really seen in a tower defense game before. I had really only ever seen that talking to the narrator archetype I think one time in another tower defense game. Characters hardly ever talk to each other directly, they really only ever talk to the player. But of course it wouldn't be a salts video without some salts. It is not all sunshines and rainbows for Paradigm Shift. This game has one huge crippling flaw, and that is the user interface. Paradigm Shift Tower Defense has a really bad UI. It is super invasive, it takes up a huge part of your screen, and this in my opinion is the biggest turnoff from the game. I remember booting up the game for the first time and just having an actual physical backlash to seeing the UI. All I could think of is, wow, this thing is giant. When I was playing the game, my friend was able to cover up his entire screen with UI elements within 3 button presses. I'll throw the screenshot on screen, it's pretty funny. If the Paradigm Shift team happens to be watching, here's my honest suggestion, just trim the UI down. Currently the UI, especially in-game, displays too much information. Stats like your XP gained should be displayed at the end of the match, not during, as the bottom left UI in the game is pretty redundant outside of the audio visualizer. The base UI should be at the top middle of the screen in order to keep the player's sight clear. Overall, however, once you get past the UI, the game is super fun and definitely worth checking out. Bosses are fun and charismatic, towers are unique and fun. While somewhat generic, they are still unique enough to make them fun to unlock and play with. And of course, Paradigm's biggest boon is that theming and world building. I should make note for this, you guys, this video, like my other TD reviews, are based primarily on my first impressions. I'm not super knowledgeable on PSTD to talk about issues like the grind, as I've only unlocked a select few towers in the games I played researching this video. However, from my experience, the towers I got were easy to attain, and the game didn't have any big balancing issues. It was overall a smooth experience to play. Although I'm sure more experienced players have found some smaller issues that the developers could tweak. But let me know what you guys think. Will you be trying PSTD? Have you played it before? Does it look good or bad? Let me know in the comments below. I do read every single one. That's all for this one, you guys. Like the video if you liked the video, subscribe for more salts, Join that Discord server in the description if you are extra cool. And, as always, say it with me now. Make stuff you're proud of.